I survived multiple medical conditions. I survived sexual harassment. I've survived abuse. I've survived lupus, and I've survived a brain tumor. I was afraid that I was going to leave my young children without a mother. You go through a near death experience like that, and it changes your purpose. You find your purpose. It's like you've been living all your life for something or someone else. Then it's like a switch that just goes off. If you're fighting, you're not living.
Thanks for joining the Vibrant Soul Society, The Conversations. I'm your host, Baba Sam, the Miracle Man. We are blessed with a very vibrant, bright soul with us today, Crystal. So, Crystal, welcome to The Conversations.
Thank you. I am so honored to be part of your podcast.
Yeah, happy to have you here. So, people that aren't familiar with Crystal, who is Crystal?
Who is Crystal? I am so many things. I am me, ultimately. I am a survivor. I am a mother. I am a engineer. I am a spiritual person. I am a coach. I am all the things, just like we all are. We all are connected in all different ways.
You got into an interesting point. A survivor of what?
We all survive a lot, right? We survive our childhoods. If we've made it this far, we went through stuff in our childhood. Everybody does. And it's all different things. I survived being a teenager. I think it's even worse than the childhood part. I survived multiple medical conditions. I survived sexual harassment. I've survived abuse. I've survived lupus, and I've survived a brain tumor. So now I survive everyday life.
What do you mean by surviving lupus, surviving a brain tumor? But I think you've gone beyond surviving. I think you actually turned them into a thriving component. Would you agree with
Mm.
that?
Yes, I would. I would agree with that because going through a process where you're incapacitated, which you would know based on what you went through, and being kind of defined by an illness, and that just becomes you. And they tell you, there's no cure for it. You're stuck with it the rest of your life. You're just going to keep adding on the medications, adding on the symptoms. It's just going to continue to get worse until you die. That's what the medical system tells you. And it's not hard to end up in that mentality where you're just, okay, this is now me. This is what I am. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of drive to find the way that you can pull yourself out of that thinking. It's that thinking and almost programming that we have in society today when it comes to illnesses. Okay, this is what we are. This is where we're going to be. And this is what we have to deal with. Instead of like stepping outside of that and finding another way and starting to have gratitude for the things you do have, starting to enjoy those things, starting to actually find joy in your life outside of this thing supposedly defining you. Then you realize you are way stronger than you think you are. You start incorporating things into your life that turn things around. It sometimes it's slow and sometimes you have setbacks. Then sometimes it's quick and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what just happened? And then maybe you'll have a setback and then you'll come back. Be like, okay, I've learned a lot through this process. Now I know how to listen to my body, what to listen to and what not to listen to in my brain, and how to connect with my spirit so that I have the power of the energy of thriving as opposed to surviving.
Right. And you make an important point that a lot of people get hung up on their diagnosis, their labels, their attachment to that. So for many, that's a challenge to realize it's just a label. It's not them. How do
Mm.
you help them flip it to see that the label doesn't have to define you?
Well, all of that is about connecting with your inner self because your inner self, what people call your soul, your higher self, your spirit, that's not defined or labeled as anything, right? We're all connected in the universe through energy. We are energy. And what is compromising our energy? What is changing that? For me, the spiritual aspect of it was that one piece I was missing all along. Even though I was doing the nutrition and I was doing the movement and I was doing the brain work and the therapy and all of those things, it was the spiritual element and realizing that I am a divine being and connecting with that. Deepak Chopra does this talk, and one of my mentors, I'm a Deepak Chopra total well-being coach. I'm certified in his program. In this talk, he talks about the one cell where we all start as one cell, right? There's one cell and then it multiplies and then it creates life, it creates a human. But how do those cells know to duplicate? How do they know to morph and change from the cell of your skin to the cell of your heart to the cell of your eye to the cells of your nails to the cells of your liver to your fluid systems to your muscles? Every single cell in your body is different, and they all start with one. How do they know, and how does that happen? That is the connection to the universe. That is the spirit. That's the soul. There is no answer to the miracle of human life and how it established, how we heal so quickly, how we can go from one thing to the next so quickly. It's not just the brain, it's not just the heart, it's the soul, the spirit, that connection, the energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really curious because you're saying you were missing the spiritual element. How did you know you were missing the spiritual element?
Spirit yelled at me. For me, it was mediumship. Spirit started talking to me. I connected with guides. I connected with dead people. I talked to dead people. They talked to me. And I thought it was crazy at first. I was like, oh, it's just another thing that people are going to think I'm nuts. It has been going on all my life, but I'd always just kind of pushed it away, not paid attention to it. It's too woo woo. You're super creative, and all those things. And I actually tapped into it in my meditation practice and got curious. That's when it became something. I had grown up with specific religions that were pushed on me as a child, and I rebelled against them all. Nothing connected with me. I always just thought, well, it's not for me. Spirituality is not a specific religion. Spirituality is your connection to the universe, your connection to your inner self.
That's the way I see religion versus spirituality. There's a big difference that religion has rules and ways of being, and spiritual is just liberation.
It's a
That
great word for it. Liberation, freedom to think what you want to think, feel what you want to feel, and connect how you want to connect.
you talked about meditation.
Mhm.
Where did meditation come into the process? Because talk about the spiritual element, then mediumship, but then you pulled in meditation.
A
How did that fall?
meditation, mm, where along my journey, during when I was dealing with lupus, meditation came in there. That became a practice that I started adopting when I started really looking into different holistic modalities, different holistic ways of healing. I had seen a holistic nutritionist for years, and he practiced classic Chinese medicine modality, which includes energy healing, it includes meditation, it includes all of those things. And he didn't push it on his patients because he was there to help with nutrition, but it was part of his practice. It was part of what he did. And it wasn't woo woo. It wasn't, strict religion. It wasn't any of those things. It was like, you can try some of this, and this is how I use this. So then I started really looking into it and other forms of it. Indian traditions, Japanese traditions, Indonesian tradition, all the different types of traditions of classic medicine, classic healings, and meditation is throughout, right? And so I just started. One day I did little guided ones just to learn how to quiet my brain and settle it down. Slowly, I continued doing that longer and longer. I looked into whoever else I could listen to. Then I started taking classes. Now I actually give guided meditations. I became a guided meditation specialist. It was years for me, and now it's just a practice. It's just part of me. It's like brushing your teeth.
Yeah, I completely understand that. So you're a little bit different than what I was. Like when you were giving the lupus label, you looked to alternate medicine. I always stuck with traditional medicine because that's where a lot of us get stuck in
Mm.
traditional medicine. So what caused that little spark to say, okay, I was given lupus, I don't like the mainstream medicine, and got you to explore an alternate path?
I had been exploring the alternate path with the holistic nutrition years prior. I had a massive breakdown due to anaphylactic shock. I
Mm,
had multiple anaphylactic shock reactions to foods. One year, I went to the hospital, I think 6 times for the anaphylactic shock. And the end of that year, it was a really bad situation at the hospital. They couldn't get the medications right with the epi. My heart went crazy and they gave me other medications. And I was there for like a week and they would put me through all these heart tests and it put me into a nervous breakdown. I was afraid that I was going to die if I ate. I was afraid that I was going to leave my young children without a mother. I was afraid of everything. And that's when I started seeing the holistic nutritionist because he had a way of tapping into your nervous system, tapping into your body to teach you about what foods work for you and what foods don't. It's not a matter of pricking you and putting the food in you like the way that all the doctors would do it, because I went through years of allergy testing and doctors would say, just don't eat this, this, and this. And then I'd have another reaction and I'm like, I didn't eat that and that. It was just insane for me. And so this was my way out. When I connected with this man and found out that he helped thousands of people, he helped me come out of my hole. I was on antidepressants, medication just to make me move, but I was stagnant because of the medications. I eventually learned to find joy and gratitude and what to eat to pull myself out of those medications. Then years later, the lupus popped in. I was like, okay, I know holistic practices help me. So they're giving me medications and they make me worse or they make me numb. They handle things for a little while and then they add more. I was doing both. I was doing the Western and some Eastern and mixing it all together. But the more I realized, if I tapped into what was going on with my mind, body, and spirit, the more I realized I didn't need the medications. The holistic side was trial and error for me. When I was younger, I used to think chiropractic was crazy because that's the way I was brought up, right? And I remember my husband when I was in my 20s being like, well, such and such is a chiropractor and I have these neck and back problems. I'm going to see him. I've heard that they're quacks. This is what my dad told me. Those things that you don't realize are limiting beliefs that are put on you based on your upbringing and what you're around. Now I'm completely the other side. I've done them. I've learned them. I've gotten certified in a lot of them. And I use all those different modalities to be healthier than I ever was in my 50s.
It's really interesting thread that I'm seeing when I'm talking to individuals. It's almost like your spirit knows bigger things are coming. So we're going to help you prepare for those bigger things by teaching you something before that crisis hits. So it's really interesting that spirit is saying, well, we see like lupus, the brain stuff coming your direction. So let's get you prepared for that
Yeah.
before it hits.
Yeah. And by the time the brain tumor came, I was just like, okay, something else to deal with. Everybody was like, why are you not freaking out? Are they going to take out this thing that's bigger than a golf ball? Okay. I've done worse. Was it scary? Yeah. Did I have a few breakdowns? Yeah. But for the most part, I was really positive and just like looking at the research and looking at, okay, how do I prepare myself to be ready for it? How do I make sure my body can heal? What do I do before and afterwards? Then
Because
after the brain tumor, everything just kind of blew up for me as far as learning. You go through a near death experience like that and it changes your purpose. You find your purpose. It's like you've been living all your life for something or someone else. Then it's like a switch that just goes off. And I've met so many other people that had near death experiences or traumatic experiences, and it was the same for them. It changed their whole purpose. Being an engineer for over 30 years and having the brain tumor and then being like, this isn't what I'm meant to do. I'm good at it. I make good money, but it's not what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to use my stories and my healing modalities and what I've learned to help others.
Yes, it's very interesting. We are going through lots of health challenges. You have these near-death experiences. Just sort of like a humble confidence that you have. It's like, all right, another thing's coming. I have the skills within me to take care of it. And people around you are freaking out. They're in worse shape than you are because they're all with this anxiety and stress. And you're like, it's cool. I know who I am. I know how to move through this. So I see that
Yeah.
within your journey.
Yeah. It's definitely empowering, right?
Right.
To almost like you don't have the fear. If something happens to me, then it's meant to happen. It's that spiritual connection to your soul, to that being that you are that, okay, this is just what I'm supposed to do.
Right. It gives you a story, it gives you experiences so you can help others because you've
Mm,
been through it, you can guide them through. And
yeah.
I'm in that position too. It's like, we've been here, we know the steps to move through this. And it's about getting rid of the fear, the anxiety, the stress, because that's a blocking energy.
Stress is the number one reason for disease in today's world.
Yes.
It starts with disease, which becomes disease. And that's why I've been continuing my certifications. I'm now a national board certified health and wellness coach. You break your arm, you need a doctor. You got a brain tumor, you need a doctor. But there's other things that you can do that assist and help. But with lupus, the doctors didn't help, right? Autoimmune conditions, they tell you your body's attacking itself. Your body's yelling at you because you're not paying attention. I say your body's telling you something and you're not listening. What's going on in your brain? What's going on in your environment? What are you subjecting yourself to? What are you enduring? What's going on in your life? Are you living for you? Or you're living for this fake you that you think you should be?
And I do see autoimmune as attacking the body because everyone that I've worked with autoimmune has filled with self-criticism, self-judgment, self-hate. So you give that energy out and it's just the body starts increasing the stress levels because you're just being so critical with yourself. So in a way, the body's attacking itself because your stress levels are through the roof.
Yeah, the hormones don't know what to do. Everything's up, down, upside down. All your levels change consistently. You're in that fight or flight. You're always ready to go. And your body's not meant to live that way.
And with all the distractions and social media news, we're constantly in this fight mode and it's not
Yeah.
helpful.
The amazing Mel Robbins, she has this saying where she says, put down the sword, that we're all walking around with this sword. And what happens if you pretend that you're holding it, right? Your body just tenses up. But if you put it down, your shoulders relax. You don't need to fight. I
Right.
think it's an
Because,
amazing analogy because I think we all feel that every day. Are we
right.
going into a grocery store feeling like we're fighting? Are we going into get gas and feel like we're fighting? Going into your workplace and feeling like you're fighting? No, we're living. If you're fighting, you're not living.
Right. The real key to healing is relaxation and
Mhm.
peace, getting all the stress out of the way.
Yeah, it's like processing all those emotions. It's understanding when you're afraid. It's understanding when you're angry, when you're sad. It's all of those emotions and actually feeling them. Okay, why am I feeling this way? It's okay to feel this way instead of shoving it down and ignoring it and being like, okay, I understand now why. I've walked it through in my brain or talked it through with somebody or written about it. And now I know I can move on. That's not going to hurt me. It hurt me in the moment, and that's okay. And have compassion for it because this is the way the brain and the body works. It has to feel all those emotions. And if you think about it, so many people get that knot in their throat, like they're going to cry or be angry, and they just hold it. Well, what happens to that? It goes down into your body. If you're not going to cry or release it, what does that become? I think it becomes disease in the body. You just keep shoving it all down.
Yeah. And it has to be released.
Mhm.
So people need instructions on how to change. This is my life. It's terrible. We need to change things around, which
Yeah.
leads us into your new book called The Change.
It's a compilation of stories. It just came out, Insights into Self-Empowerment. There's 20 authors from around the world in this book. I'm one of them. And it's all stories like mine of how we have overcome something in our life. They're amazing. It's forwarded by Les Brown. And so if anybody's interested, you can reach out to me to get the one with me on the cover.
Because, yeah, it's another interesting word. Are we really overcoming anything? Are we letting go of that?
Are we thinking about it, processing it, and then letting it go?
Right.
We're no longer giving it the same meaning. When you process limiting beliefs, you have to see, okay, what is this belief for me? And why am I holding on to it? How does it serving me? Because some of the beliefs we have, they serve us. They maybe protect us from whatever it is we don't want to deal with or have in our lives. Like limiting beliefs can create your boundaries, help you establish what's important to you and be your core belief. But some of them are maybe just attached to you that, oh, this really isn't serving me anymore. This is just making me walk around with the sword, or this is just keeping me from doing things I love. My limiting belief around a chiropractor was creating this weird thing with my husband and I years and years ago about woo, what I thought was woo, right? Now I know amazing chiropractors. I actually am an energy healer. Back then, I would have thought it was crazy. But I had to process that belief and understand, well, what was that protecting for me back then? What was I afraid of?
Mm. Yeah, it's really good for people to inquire, like, what am I afraid of? What am I protecting? They're really deep questions that we can really ask ourselves and dive into that.
I think it's really important. A lot of people say, well, how do I let go? I don't know how to let go. Well, that's what you do. You ask questions. Is this belief 100% true? And if I do, then how is it serving me? And what is it doing for me? If you don't start asking those questions, what are your beliefs? They're just put on you by somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. This is a key point about letting go. One of the things that bothers me, I just want to see how you feel about when people say, snap out of it, let it go, like it's an easy thing to do.
It's not easy to do. Never. And there's another saying, and I find that I was saying it all the time too. It is what it is. I can't do anything about it and I'm not going to fret about it. That's like a letting go thing. But if it keeps popping up, you're just using that as an excuse to not actually think about it and be like, okay, is this important to me or is it not? If it's important to me, why is it important to me? Is it part of my core beliefs? Is it part of my systems? Is it what works for me? And if it's not, then why am I holding on to it? Yeah, like letting go is a process. You can't just, well, I don't want that anymore. I'm just letting it go because it'll pop up later. You will get triggered or you'll have a reaction to something that happens if you didn't think it through.
Mhm. That and people like dealing with depression or whatever it may be, like snap out of it. It's like, if it was not easy, everyone would do it. It's really about having that self-inquiry process to dive deeper, to explore, to
Mhm.
question what is your truth.
Yeah, really. And looking at what those shadows are in you that you're afraid to look at. That's what I do as a coach when I sit down with people. We dig into those things. What are your core beliefs? What are the beliefs you want to question? What are the shadows that you're dealing with that you're, separating yourself from? But you have to understand they're part of you and you have to love you as the whole you because you are whole. If you separate these things, you're the one making yourself not whole.
It's all a mental thing that's creating separation.
Yeah.
We have to understand at a spiritual level that we are whole and complete just as we are.
Just as you are. Even if you're depressed, even if you're dealing with crazy traumas and crazy stuff, it's just where you are right now. Part of the process, part of the journey.
Yeah, it's just part of the journey. As we're wrapping up here, one last thing. If somebody's really going through, everything's going crazy right now. They're in the middle of a crisis. What's the first thing they need to do to put a break on that?
Breathe. Take a moment, breathe. I think that that sword, that constant, like, just worrying about everything, like, if you're afraid to meditate, if you're afraid to get into some sort of practice, literally just stop and breathe. Notice the miracle of your breath and what it's doing for your body and your life. Start there. Then maybe look at meditating. Look at having a gratitude practice. There's very simple tools that you can start doing and pick one that works for you. There is no perfect set of tools that work for everybody. Everyone has their own DNA. Everybody is different, including twins. Your journey is going to be different. What works for me might not work for you, but you might take this and this out of what I did and then grab this and this of what this person did. And oh, this is my recipe. And so breathe. And then what can I do? How does this help me?
That's very important that we all have our own recipe and we have to find that recipe within us, pulling these various pieces and building your recipe.
Mm,
And breathing is such an important thing that people don't realize. And I say it's the first step to build awareness that most people are not in this present moment. We have to remember we're either in the mind, lost in this story, or we're here. And the more we're here in this moment, the more gaps we're putting into the thought stream, the more peace you'll experience.
the present moment is the only moment. The
Yeah.
past is what we learned from, and the future is yet to be defined.
Yes, exactly. Everything's right here, right now.
And then you can go even more into the rabbit hole and be like, well, there is no such thing as time. If
Exactly,
you want to get
exactly.
into the woo,
Exactly.
that's what meditation's great for, right? Is being in the moment.
Just to learn to be here, increase the awareness, increase the presence. Then your
Mm,
whole life can change from that point where you can step out of that chaos.
that's a great way to say it. Step out of the chaos and into your breath.
So, Crystal, if people wanted to reach out to you, how would they do so?
They can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn under Crystal Moon Holistic Healing. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Facebook under my name, Crystal Robinson.
Thank you for joining us on the conversation today. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.